Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the dusty, leather-scented life of an ordinary shoemaker in the ancient Roman city of Pompeii. The year is somewhere around 78 CE, and you've got a full day ahead of you rushing to finish commissions, dodging nosy guild reps, and maybe even crafting a sandal or two for a monkey. The streets are loud, your tools are dull, and your back aches before breakfast. You probably won't survive this, especially if you don't pace yourself. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from and what time is it where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the sun, which sounds poetic until you remember why. Your bed is a scratchy pile of cloth that smells vaguely of olive oil, and your back protests the moment you move. The room is cramped stone walls, one window, and just enough space to swing your feet to the floor. Welcome to your one-room insula apartment, tucked above the rows of workshops on the quieter side of Pompeii's bustling Via dell'Abbondanza. Outside, the city stirs and murmurs. Distant clanging from the blacksmith's quarter, the rhythmic thud of grain being milled, a dog barking at nothing in particular. You splash cold water from a cracked jug onto your face. Instant regret. The chill hits hard, but you're awake now. The smell of your neighbor's bread hits you next. She's already baking again. You'd ask for a crusty corner, but she's never forgiven you for that sandal you made her son 2 sizes too big, or so she claims. Still, the smell's comforting. You gnaw on a dry fig from last night's dinner and glance at the little clay idol on your shelf. It's Mercury today. He's supposed to protect merchants? You offer a quick nod. No time for incense today. Your tools are right where you left them, stacked neatly on a shelf, save for one awl that rolled under your cot. You retrieve it with a groan, smacking your head on the cot frame in the process. It's not even light out, and you're already mildly concussed. Promising start. Downstairs, your workshop awaits. A narrow staircase of worn stone leads you down to the shop front. You unlatch the creaky wooden shutter that serves as both door and window. The hinges complain louder than your joints. As the morning light spills in the air, smells faintly of damp earth and last night's spilled wine. You grab the broom. It's not yours. It belongs to the mosaic artist next door, but you borrowed it so often, it might as well be family. With a few sleepy swipes, you clear out the fine volcanic dust that always seems to sneak in overnight. Scholars still argue whether this dust was just a fact of life or a warning of things to come. Either way, it's annoying. As you sweep, a lizard darts across the floor, stopping just long enough to judge your sweeping form before vanishing into a crack near the back wall. You sigh. It's too early for reptilian shade. Your shop is small, one workbench, a couple of stools, and a wall of leather scraps hanging like tattered ghosts. There's a low shelf with sandals in various stages of disrepair, a child's pair missing a strap, a senator's boot with a mysteriously chewed heel, a mysterious order marked only for Bacchus rituals, discreet. Your fingers twitch with muscle memory. Before long, you're laying out tools in the order you always do: knife awl, curved needle thread, beeswax, and a little jar of olive oil you use to soften stubborn straps. You check your ledger, a wax tablet scrawled with names, measurements and notes like no arch, very picky, and absolutely no goat leather. A distant rooster crows. You consider throwing a sandal at it. Instead, you crack your knuckles and sit at the bench. Time to start the day. But first, porridge. You retreat briefly to the back of the shop where your cooking pot still holds yesterday's barley gruel. It's congealed but edible. Probably. You scoop it into a shallow dish sprinkle on a hint of cumin and eat standing up, watching the street begin to fill with early risers. A donkey clops by, followed by two sleepy boys hauling baskets of olives. Across the street, a woman argues with a fruit seller about whether her plums were bruised yesterday. It's the usual Pompeian morning, and you humble shoemaker are right in the middle of it. You've just wiped your hands on your tunic when the first customer of the day appears, a familiar silhouette with an unmistakable limp. It's old Lucius, a retired soldier turned professional complainer. He pushes open your workshop shutter with the theatrical groan of someone who believes every motion deserves an audience. "Still not done with my sandals?" he asks, as if he didn't pick them up last week. You wave him in, pointing to the stool that wobbles less than the others. He plops down with a sigh that's half accusation, half arthritis. You retrieve his file from the wax tablet. Indeed, he picked up a new pair just 6 days ago. You remind him. "Well, they squeak," he replies, crossing his arms like a toddler. You offer him oil for the straps and suggest that walking on less gravel might also help. He huffs, but accepts. The elderly in Pompeii might not control the Senate, but they do control gossip. So you tread carefully. As Lucius rambles about how the military used to make sturdier boots, your mind drifts to the shoemaking guild. Not your favorite topic. They're due to send a representative soon for inspection, someone to check if you're using approved methods, paying dues, and not secretly buying leather from outside the city walls. Historians still argue whether the guilds were supportive or just legal extortion with better record keeping. You finish oiling Lucius's sandals and hand them back. He grumbles a thank you and leaves, forgetting his walking stick. You call after him and he waves you off. Again. You add a note in the wax tablet. Consider adding leash to Lucius's stick. With your shop now momentarily quiet, you take advantage of the lull to prep a new order. This one's for a young woman named Sabina, daughter of a wealthy cloth merchant. She wants a pair of red-dyed leather sandals with floral carvings. A bit excessive, sure, but she's paying with good coin and a bolt of leftover linen. You sketch a rough design with a charcoal nub on a scrap of plaster. Red dye is no joke. It's expensive, often imported from the East, and stains everything, including your fingertips, your tunic, and once, very memorably, your neighbor's cat. You select a smoother hide from your stack, rubbing it between your fingers to feel for imperfections. Leatherworking is all about touch. Smell, too. If it smells like old fish, you send it back. As you begin cutting the leather, you hear the telltale shuffle of someone trying not to be noticed. You glance up. Sure enough, it's Rufus, the tanner's apprentice, face smudged and hair like a bird's nest. He's holding a sack with fresh offcuts. "You didn't hear this from me," he says, dropping the bag on your bench, "but there's a new tanner from Capua offering better prices. He works quiet." You raise an eyebrow. Imported leather, outside guild channels. That's a no-go. But cheaper leather is tempting. You toss him a half loaf of barley bread for his trouble and remind him not to tell anyone you listened. The leather pieces for Sabina's sandals are laid out now, and the sun's climbing. Your stomach reminds you lunch is soon, but you want to finish carving the floral patterns first. You use a small stylus, dipping it in a bit of water before etching petals into the damp surface. The designs are simple, stylized violets mostly, but to her they'll feel luxurious. A neighbor peeks in Julia the mosaicist, carrying a small bowl of lentils. "Lunch swap," she offers. You accept. Her lentils are always spiced better than your barley, and you give her half your fig ration in return. She watches you work a moment. "Those flowers look like my mother's," she says, and you both smirk. You'd met her mother. She was not a delicate woman. With Sabina's design carved and drying, you stretch your arms and step out into the alley behind the shop. It's narrow, barely room for one person and a goat, though sometimes both try at once. You lean against the warm wall and breathe in the faint scent of herbs from someone's kitchen. Somewhere someone's baking onions again. You wish it were you. From here, you can see the upper floors of the bathhouse, hear the slap of water and faint echoes of laughter. There's comfort in the city's rhythm, even if it's sometimes too loud. You think back to that one week. The aqueduct broke no water, no customers, only complaints. That was the week you tried making sandals from felt. Never again. Back in the shop, you seal the edges of Sabina's sandals with a blend of wax and oil. You'll let them rest overnight before adding the ties. Your hands ache, and you realize you've been standing too long. Time for a break. You sit by the front of the shop watching people pass. A boy chases a chicken. A man balances amphorae on a rickety cart. Someone's arguing over garlic prices again. Life in Pompeii isn't glamorous, but it's consistent. And in a city that still rumbles slightly underfoot, consistency is a gift. Afternoon sunlight slants across your workshop floor in golden streaks, catching on tiny curls of leather and casting warm shadows behind your tools. This is the hour when Pompeii quiets a bit, when the streets hush under the weight of the sun and only the most stubborn vendors keep hollering. You use this lull for delicate work, the sort that requires steady fingers and no interruptions. Today, that means repairing a senator's boot. Senator Plautius, you remind yourself, the one with the polished bald head and a penchant for bragging about his vineyard. His boot arrived last week with a chewed heel and a mysterious sticky residue on the insole. Possibly honey, possibly something darker. You don't ask questions. He pays in silver, and silver speaks louder than common sense. You retrieve the boot from the shelf, inspect the damage, and begin gently scraping off whatever unfortunate substance had made its home there. As you work, the scent of old wine rises from the leather. Fitting. You apply a touch of vinegar to neutralize it, but the smell just fights back harder. You cough and mutter that it's going to smell like a tavern forever. With the insole cleaned, you begin reinforcing the heel. The leather there is gnawed down, likely the work of a rat or a very determined dog. You cut a new heel patch, shape it carefully, and glue it in place using a paste of resin and powdered pumice. One of those techniques passed down by masters who never bothered writing things down. Historians still argue whether Roman glue recipes were closely guarded secrets or simply never worth preserving. As you press the patch into place, you remember a trick an old shoemaker taught you. He said to chant under your breath while holding the bond so the leather would hear you and stay. You scoffed then, but you find yourself mumbling now anyway. Can't hurt. Outside, a cart rolls by squeaky wheels and all its driver calling out the price of smoked fish. You wince. The only thing worse than the smell of fish is the smell of fish in Pompeii heat. You shut the workshop shutter halfway and return to your work eyes, adjusting to the dim. Your next task is more creative, a pair of theatrical boots for a local actor. He wants something dramatic, like a gladiator fell in love with a swan. He told you? You're still not entirely sure what that means, but you've interpreted it as heavy sandals with high laces and decorative feathers. The feathers, thank the gods, are his responsibility. You cut the thick soles, first layering 2 slabs of cork between treated hide. Roman actors love height, especially comic ones who want to tower over the crowd. You test the bounce of the sole and chuckle it feels more like a trampoline than footwear. You hope he doesn't break an ankle mid-monologue. The actor Secundus arrives just as you're threading the upper straps. He's tall even without the boots and carries himself like he expects applause at every intersection. "How's my footwear of triumph?" he booms. You hold up one boot trying to keep your sarcasm from leaking too hard. He tries one on, does a dramatic spin, and declares it an artistic rebirth for my feet. You mention the price. He winces. Perhaps a modest rebirth. He leaves a deposit half coin, half promise to mention your name to important theater people. You smile and nod. That and a sestertius might get you a lentil stew. With the boots tucked away to finish later, you wipe your brow. The workshop smells of leather oil and faint regret. You catch a glimpse of yourself in the polished brass shield you use as a mirror. Your hands are stained, your eyes have dark circles, and your tunic has seen better months. But there's something comforting in the grime. It's the look of someone whose work keeps the city walking. A faint rumble vibrates under your stool, so small you might have imagined it. You glance at your tools. Nothing fell. Just another shrug from Mount Vesuvius, perhaps. Pompeians joke about it mostly. If the gods wanted to smite us, they'd at least send a warning, your neighbor once said. Then again, historians still argue whether locals had any real idea the mountain was dangerous at all. Shaking it off, You decide it's time for a stretch. You walk out into the alley again and head toward the Forum. It's not far, maybe 10 minutes, through twisting lanes and open courtyards. You pass bathers emerging in togas, merchants arguing under striped awnings, and a street performer juggling apples badly. The Forum hums with its usual energy. You don't linger long, just a few breaths of open air, a glance at the statue of Apollo, and a quick peek at the posted notices on the wall, mostly political graffiti, lost goats, and one impressively crude drawing of Neptune you wish you hadn't seen. Then it's back to the workshop. Sabina's sandals still need laces, and the actor's feathers aren't going to tie themselves. You step back into the workshop, letting the door creak just a little longer than necessary, one of those small pleasures you're allowed to indulge in after years of crafting soles for every kind of foot in Pompeii. The air inside has settled into its usual tang, hot leather, warm oil, and faint vinegar. It's oddly comforting in the way that all familiar discomforts are. There's something grounding about a place that smells like effort. Your hands find Sabina's half-laced sandals. She's a merchant's daughter with a kind of taste that leans toward the expensive but vague. Make them look exotic, she told you, flicking her hand as if that cleared things up. So you added dyed straps and Tyrian purple, well, Tyrian-ish, more like a clever beetroot blend, and small bronze clasps shaped like lotuses. Not exactly Egyptian, but close enough that it might impress at the next garden feast. You thread the final strap, adjusting the tightness. Sabina, for all her fashion experiments, has surprisingly strong ankles, possibly from running away from tutors. You gently stretch the leather around the instep and burnish the edges of the sole with a curved bit of antler bone, your favorite tool. Historians still debate whether Romans used such organic materials widely or if that's a later romantic idea. Either way, it works. A neighbor pokes his head through your doorway, Gaius the potter, with permanently clay-stained elbows. "You seen the mule cart?" he asks. You shake your head. The delivery cart is late, which means your stack of hides from the tanner in Nuxeria is likely baking somewhere in the sun. Gaius grumbles and wanders off muttering about mule incompetence. You half expect him to sculpt a sarcastic bust of the driver later. You return to the sandals, adjusting the brass lotus. It's slightly crooked, and you can't let that pass. There's pride in your work, even if your clients don't always see the difference. You heat a bronze pick and gently soften the glue underneath, easing the clasp into perfect alignment. There. Good enough to sell and almost good enough to keep. Before you can reach for the next task, a sharp rap comes from the front post. It's Flaccus, the messenger boy with one shoe always untied. Got a request, he pants, holding out a scrap of parchment. You take it, your fingers brushing his ink-stained ones. The note reads, "Need soft shoes for my mother. She walks like thunder. M. Plinius." You chuckle. Pliny the Elder, or someone pretending to be, wants slippers. You're about 80% sure it's a prank, possibly by that baker's apprentice who once asked for invisible sandals. Still, you've got leftover felt and an hour to spare. Might as well play along. The prankster will owe you for the laugh. You start cutting soft soles, layering them with worn-down goat hide and padded flax. As you work, your mind wanders to your first pair of shoes. You were 13, and they were terrible lopsided stiff and somehow squeaked with every step. Your mentor made you wear them for a week as punishment. You think of him often. He used to say, "A good shoemaker sees the foot that will be not just the one that is." You're still figuring out what that means. The sunlight begins to fade as you stitch the soft slippers. Your fingers have a memory of their own now, and you barely look down. A part of you notices the silence outside, the kind of quiet that settles like fog, soft and deliberate. There's no shouting from the forum, no clatter of carts. Just the distant rustle of laundry and the occasional bark of a faraway dog. You pause, suddenly aware of how loud your own breathing sounds. Sometimes when Pompeii goes this quiet, it feels like the whole city is holding its breath. You set the slippers aside and step into the alley again. The sky is turning that syrupy blue that comes right before dusk, the color of crushed plums. In the distance, Mount Vesuvius looms a silhouette too grand to ignore. You squint, trying to read the smoke drifting from its peak. Normal, strange. Or just the mountain doing what mountains do. You shake your head. It's not your business to interpret gods or geology. Your business is feet. Feet that ache, feet that dance, feet that stomp through life with no regard for the artistry wrapped around them. You return to your bench, ready to clean up when you notice one last item. You'd almost forgotten a small sandal with a cracked thong left earlier by a child with a serious expression and not a single coin. You promised to fix it anyway. You sit back down, sigh, and lift the tiny sandal with both hands like it's something sacred. It's worn to the point of collapse, but you can see the care someone once took in its making. You begin slowly to give it a second chance. The sun has dipped lower, painting Pompeii's streets in a soft orange haze that feels like a lullaby, just waiting to be sung. You're still at your bench fiddling with that tiny sandal for the child who forgot to pay. The leather is thin, fragile even, and the stitching's frayed like the shoe's been on 1,000 little adventures. You wonder if the child's feet are tired from running errands, or maybe chasing friends around the forum. As you work, you remember your first customers were also children, though you didn't realize it at the time. Small feet demand more patience, more care, and sometimes a bit of imagination, because kids tend to stretch, stomp, and outgrow their shoes overnight. You adjust the thong, carefully reinforcing it with a strip of soft goat leather that you snagged earlier from the tanner's scraps. It feels good to patch up something worn rather than create anew. Historians still argue whether Roman children commonly wore sandals or simple wraps. You lean toward the wrap camp, easier to make and replace, though far less glamorous. You decide to keep that debate to yourself. After all, you're a shoemaker, not a philosopher. You glance around your workshop, noticing the half-finished pile of shoes waiting for owners who may never come today. Among the scattered tools, There's a pair of brogues meant for a senator's wife, encrusted with tiny glass beads meant to shimmer in the sun. They've been sitting there too long, and you swear they almost mock you with their silent elegance. Outside, the marketplace's bustle has quieted down. You hear the distant plunk of the public fountain and the faint clatter of a wooden cart rolling down the street. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks again, no surprise there. You often joke that Pompeii's dogs know more gossip than the senators. Your thoughts drift to the curious tradition of footwear as status symbols. Not everyone can afford dyed leather or bronze buckles. Some folks wear plain, sturdy sandals that have seen better days, while others parade around in something so delicate it's more ornament than protection. You remember a merchant bragging once about shoes made from elephant hide, more likely a tall tale, but it made for a good laugh. Suddenly, a shadow falls across your bench. It's Marcellus, a local poet who likes to dramatize even the smallest things. Your shoes could inspire a sonnet, he says, gesturing at the child's sandal. You laugh softly, telling him only if the sonnet includes a proper sole and sturdy straps. He winks and departs, his footsteps echoing down the alley. You take a moment to appreciate this odd little world of cobbled-together stories and leather. Every shoe here tells a story not just of who wore it, but of the countless steps taken, the places seen, the paths chosen or avoided. Sometimes you wonder if future historians will find your work and piece together your life from the souls left behind. The twilight deepens, and you realize the workshop feels a little cooler, now the heat of the day giving way to the evening's gentle chill. You set down your tools and stretch your cramped fingers, feeling the ache that only comes from true craftsmanship. There's a quiet satisfaction in that. You glance once more at the tiny sandal now stitched and mended, ready to face the world again. The child may not know the care you put into it, but that doesn't matter. You do. And sometimes that's enough. The evening breeze carries the faint scent of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery, mingling with the earthy aroma of drying leather in your workshop. You lean back, letting the day's rhythm settle into a soft pulse inside you. It's a peculiar kind of calm, knowing the streets are slowly emptying, the marketplace chatter fading into whispers, and footsteps becoming lighter. Your hands feel stiff, but there's a certain joy in that stiffness, a reminder of a day well spent. You reach for your water skin and take a long sip, feeling the cool liquid ease the dryness in your throat. It's a small comfort, but one you savor amid the simplicity of your surroundings. Nearby, a group of women laugh softly as they walk past, their sandals clicking lightly on the cobblestones. You wonder if any of them will stop by tomorrow, hoping to trade gossip for a pair of newly made slippers or sturdy work shoes. The town thrives on such simple exchanges, stories woven into the very fabric of daily life. Historians still argue whether Pompeian shoemakers were regarded more as artisans or mere laborers. From your vantage point, you suspect the truth lies somewhere in the middle, respected enough to be needed, but never quite admired, as poets or politicians are. You glance over at a small pile of tools, wooden lasts, shaped like tiny feet needles, sharp enough to pierce leather with ease, and awls worn smooth from years of use. Each item holds memories of shoes past, of customer demands met and challenges overcome. Sometimes the tools feel like extensions of your own fingers, guiding you through the intricate dance of craft and creativity. A sudden shout from the street pulls your attention. It's a child, no doubt excited about something trivial, but infectious enough to lift your spirits. You smile to yourself, recalling how many of your early customers were that same eager age, wide-eyed and restless, their feet barely contained by even the best crafted shoes. The moon rises slowly, casting a silvery glow over Pompeii's rooftops and alleyways. You imagine how different the city looks bathed in moonlight shadows, lengthening secrets tucked away for another day. It's a quieter world, but no less alive. You remember hearing about a festival where shoemakers were honored, a rare nod to your profession's importance. The idea of a parade dedicated to your trade seems almost comical, but also oddly heartwarming. Such moments, however, few remind you that even the smallest crafts have their place in history. The night deepens and your thoughts wander to the strange superstitions tied to shoes. Some say placing a new shoe by the door invites good fortune, while others believe stepping over a cobbler's tools could bring bad luck. You chuckle softly, knowing well that superstitions, like shoes, come in many shapes and sizes. As you finally close your workshop door, the day's work tucked away safely, you feel a gentle tiredness settle in the kind that welcomes sleep. Tomorrow promises more of the same leather thread and the quiet satisfaction of shaping something useful. But for now, you let the city's night lull you gently toward rest. Morning arrives soft and slow, with a gentle light filtering through your workshop's small window, dust motes drifting lazily in the air. You awaken to the familiar scent of leather and earth already settling into the day's routine. The city hums quietly outside, the distant clatter of carts and the murmur of early risers stirring to life. You stretch out your stiff fingers, grateful for the chance to start fresh. Today, you have a commission that intrigues you, a pair of sturdy sandals for a merchant's long journey along the Via Appia. The merchant is a gruff man with little patience for chatter, but he appreciates craftsmanship, and that means you. The process begins with selecting the right hides, thick but flexible, perfect for withstanding miles of travel. You run your hands over the supple leather, noting the fine grain and occasional imperfection that gives it character. You trim carefully, mindful that every cut matters. Historians still debate whether Roman shoemakers often worked alone or in small groups. From what you observe in the market and the workshops nearby, it seems a bit of both, a mix of solitary craft and occasional teamwork when demands spike. As you begin shaping the soles, you recall an odd tale from a fellow artisan about a shoemaker who supposedly made shoes so light the wearer felt as if walking on air. You smile at the thought. It sounds more like a legend than fact. But perhaps every trade has its myths. The rhythmic tapping of your awl punctuates the quiet morning, a comforting metronome to your thoughts. Around you, your tools seem to take on a life of their own, each with stories, etched into their handles scars from years of use. You pause to consider how important footwear is not just protection, but a statement of who someone is. Soldiers, slaves, senators, each has a distinct style, and your work helps shape their identity in subtle ways. It's a responsibility you carry quietly but proudly. Outside, a group of children chase a stray goat down the street, their laughter rising above the usual bustle. You imagine their feet pounding against the stones, the urgency of play unhampered by worry or care. The smell of roasting chestnuts drifts in from a nearby stall, tempting you with the promise of a midday treat. You make a mental note to stop by later, perhaps, a small reward for a morning well spent. With the first layer of leather attached, the sandal begins to take form. Simple, sturdy, and ready to carry a traveler safely over many miles. You smile at the thought, imagining the merchant's footsteps fading into the distance. The sun climbs higher now, casting long, warm shadows through the open doorway of your workshop. You wipe the sweat from your brow with the back of your hand and glance at the sandals laid out on your bench, their form growing clearer by the hour. Each stitch pulls the leather tighter, weaving function with a subtle elegance. Today feels busier than usual, the marketplace outside alive, with merchants hawking olives, pottery, and exotic spices. The lively murmur filters through your walls, mingling with the sharp scent of tanned leather and wood shavings scattered on the floor. You work steadily, fingers moving with practiced ease, punctuating the quiet with the soft clink of your tools. One of your regular customers stops by a weathered farmer looking for new boots to endure the rocky terrain around Mount Vesuvius. He grumbles about the old pair, and you nod knowingly. Shoes like these rarely last more than a season under such harsh use. You promise to have the new pair ready by the next market day. Historians still argue whether cobblers in Pompeii were organized in guilds or simply worked independently, passing knowledge informally. Judging by the variety of styles you see in town, it's likely a bit of both, some collaboration, some competition. A curious detail crosses your mind. A few years ago, you heard of a Pompeian cobbler who supposedly made shoes with hidden compartments for secret messages, a nifty trick for merchants wary of thieves. You chuckle softly, imagining spies tiptoeing around the forum with tiny scrolls tucked inside their soles. The midday heat presses down, and you catch yourself daydreaming about cool mountain streams and the scent of pine far from the leather and dust. But the work keeps you grounded, focused on the rhythm of needle and thread. Outside, a dog barks lazily, chasing its own tail, while a pair of elderly women haggle over the price of fresh figs. The slow, unhurried pace of daily life is comforting in its predictability. You examine the sandal straps, carefully adjusting their length and tension. Comfort is key. These shoes will carry a man through long days and rough roads. A perfect fit means less fatigue, and a happy customer means more word of mouth. Your thoughts drift briefly to the city's strange laws. Did you know there was a decree forbidding shoemakers to sell shoes after sunset? Some say it was to keep apprentices from overworking themselves. Others think it was more about market fairness. Either way, you're always careful to lock up before dusk. The sandal looks nearly finished, now a small triumph of your craft. Tomorrow, you'll start on another pair, perhaps for a senator's daughter or a traveling actor. But for now, you take a moment to breathe in the mingled scents of your day's labor. The afternoon stretches lazily with a gentle breeze, stirring the fabric curtains at your workshop's entrance. You feel the comforting weight of familiarity in your hands. As you pick up your tools again, ready to tackle the final details of the merchant's sandals, the smell of cured leather and beeswax polish fills the air, calming and steadying. As you trim excess leather, a street performer's soft flute melody wafts in, blending with the distant clatter of horse hooves and the faint chatter of a nearby tavern's patrons. It's one of those moments when the city seems to breathe with you a shared rhythm that lulls the senses. You think about how shoemaking in Pompeii isn't just a trade, it's part of the city's heartbeat. From simple sandals to finely crafted boots, your work supports everyone from farmers to gladiators. The idea that your creations carry their stories along each cobbled street is oddly humbling. Historians still debate whether most Roman shoes were made to order or pre-made in bulk. Your own experience leans toward custom orders. After all, feet aren't all the same size, and a well-fitted shoe is a treasure. You catch sight of a curious customer outside, a man examining a pair of worn-out slippers, shaking his head in dissatisfaction. It reminds you of a local tale about a shoemaker whose slippers supposedly cured insomnia, though many believe it's just a fanciful rumor. Still, you wouldn't mind trying those magical slippers yourself. Your fingers move deftly, threading waxed linen through tiny holes, pulling the seams tight, but careful not to overstretch the leather. You pause for a moment to admire the sandal's shape, practical, modest, yet distinctly Roman in style. The conversation outside turns to the upcoming festival of Vulcan, the god of fire and smiths, and you smile, thinking about how even gods have their footwear tales. The city's traditions weave into your daily life like threads in a sandal's soul. Nearby, a group of children chase a chicken, their shrieks of delight echoing faintly inside your quiet workshop. You briefly consider the carefree nature of their days, contrasting it with your steady, repetitive work. You rub a final coat of oil into the leather, deepening its color and ensuring durability. The sandals are already a quiet testament to your skill and patience. Tomorrow, they will begin their journey, feet bound to roads stretching far beyond Pompeii. As the sun begins its slow descent, you clean your workspace, the soft scrape of tools against wood, a gentle end to the day's work. Your mind wanders to the ancient stories these streets could tell if only shoes could talk. Evening seeps into Pompeii with a soft golden haze wrapping the city in a calm that contrasts the bustling energy of earlier hours. You pause in your work, letting the fading light warm your skin as you consider the day's progress. The sandals sit neatly on your bench, ready for their final inspection before the morning's delivery. The sounds of the city shift vendors pack up their stalls. Children's laughter softens, and the occasional song from a nearby tavern drifts in. It's a soothing backdrop, a gentle reminder that even as your hands rest, life continues to pulse around you. You think about how footwear wasn't just practical in Rome, but also a subtle marker of status. Certain colors or styles could signal a person's place in society. Purple-dyed sandals were reserved for the elite, something you've only ever crafted for a senator's wife, a rare honor that felt almost like painting with gold. Historians still debate the exact symbolism of footwear colors, but the practical need for durability was universal. The city's roads were unforgiving, especially for those who traveled daily to markets, baths, or forums. A peculiar story comes to mind, told by an old customer, a tale of a shoemaker who once crafted soles so soft they supposedly allowed the wearer to walk silently through the forum without detection. You smile at the thought, imagining sneaky senators tiptoeing past rivals. Your hands reach for your polishing cloth, gently buffing the leather's surface until it gleams softly. You enjoy this quiet ritual. It's like putting the finishing touch on a canvas, transforming raw materials into something almost alive. Outside, a stray cat slinks past its tail, flicking lazily as it disappears into the shadows. The city's nocturnal creatures are waking ready to claim their time under the stars. The scent of roasting chestnuts from a nearby street vendor mingles with the earthy aroma of fresh leather, creating a strangely comforting blend that settles deep into your senses. You tuck away your tools carefully, mindful that tomorrow will bring new orders and fresh challenges. The steady rhythm of your craft, day after day, forms the backbone of your life here in Pompeii. As you prepare to leave, you glance one last time at the sandals, a quiet promise of journeys to come, of stories yet to be worn. Night deepens, and you make your way home through Pompeii's dimly lit streets. The soft clacking of your sandals on stone blending with the distant lull of the city settling down. The air cools, carrying the faint scent of herbs from nearby gardens, and the occasional flicker of torchlight, casting shadows that dance across ancient walls. Your small house, tucked between larger merchant shops, offers a humble sanctuary. You push open the wooden door, greeted by the faint warmth of embers still glowing in the hearth. Tonight, the familiar creak of the floorboards and the soft rustle of your family's evening routine bring a comforting end to your workday. As you wash your hands, the water feels cool against your skin, a sharp contrast to the day's labor. The routine of cleansing isn't just practical. It's a ritual, washing away the city's dust and the traces of countless souls pressed into service. You think about the meals ahead, simple fare of bread, olives, and cheese, perhaps some fresh figs if the market was generous today. Food here in Pompeii is humble but flavorful, shaped by the sun-soaked land and the sea's bounty. Historians still argue whether ancient Romans actually ate more vegetables, or if the wealthy simply made a better show of their dining. Your mind drifts to the curious tradition of garum, the pungent fermented fish sauce that flavors so many dishes. To outsiders, the smell might be off-putting, but to locals like you, it's a staple seasoning part of daily life and culinary identity. In the quiet moments, you listen to the soft murmur of neighbors talking through open windows, the faint clink of cups, and the occasional bark of a dog. It's a communal soundtrack, grounding you in the neighborhood's rhythm. You settle into your modest wooden chair, the worn leather seat, shaped by years of use, another kind of craftsmanship you appreciate deeply. Your thoughts wander to the many feet that have trod these paths, their stories woven invisibly into the city's fabric. Tonight, sleep beckons gently, but you can't help but feel a small pride in your day's work, the careful shaping of leather that will protect, support, and accompany countless journeys. Before closing your eyes, you recall an odd fact. Some Pompeian shoes had tiny nails shaped like hearts believed to bring good luck. Historians still debate whether this was widespread or just a charming quirk of a few shoemakers. The night settles in fully now, soft and inviting, carrying you toward rest as the city's heartbeat slows. Morning arrives softly, the first light spilling over the rooftops and stirring Pompeii awake. You rise with the dawn, the familiar creak of your bed frame echoing your own groggy movements. The air carries a hint of salt from the nearby sea, mixed with the faint aroma of baking bread drifting from the baker's shop. Your morning routine begins with a quick wash from the basin, a splash of cold water to shake off sleep, and then you step outside to greet the day. The streets are still quiet, but the hum of early risers preparing for their daily tasks fills the air. You head toward your workshop, passing familiar sights, the fountain where women gather water, the butcher setting up his stall, and the scribes already deep in their scrolls. It's a gentle start, a soft awakening before the city bursts fully into life. Inside your workshop, the scent of leather and beeswax welcomes you like an old friend. Today's orders are laid out neatly: a pair of sturdy boots for a soldier, some delicate sandals for a merchant's wife, and a few repairs to tackle from loyal customers. Historians still argue whether Roman shoemakers were considered artisans or simply tradesmen, but to you, the craft feels like a form of quiet artistry, a blend of skill, patience, and a touch of creativity. You settle into your tools, the familiar rhythm of cutting, stitching, and shaping, easing you into focus. There's a satisfying tactile joy in working leather, the way it responds to your hands, folding and stretching with a life of its own. An unusual fact crosses your mind. Some Pompeian shoemakers experimented with cork soles for better cushioning, a quirky innovation that didn't quite catch on but speaks to the ingenuity of your craft. Outside the city begins to stir more loudly the chatter of market-goers, the clatter of carts on cobblestones, and the occasional shout from a distant vendor. It's a comforting background noise, a steady pulse beneath your work. As you shape the first piece of leather, you imagine the countless feet these shoes will carry, each step a small adventure in the grand story of Pompeii. The morning flows steadily, each moment a quiet promise of purpose and creation. Midday sun climbs higher, and the warmth presses gently through your workshop's open door. You pause your stitching to wipe a bead of sweat from your brow, feeling the heat settle into your bones like a familiar embrace. The city outside bustles, steadily voices calling, children laughing, and the clatter of coins exchanging hands in the nearby market. The shoemaking bench feels both sanctuary and stage, where you perform a quiet dance of precise cuts and careful gluing. Today, you work on a pair of sandals for a visiting dignitary. The leather softer and finer than usual. There's a satisfaction in knowing your work might walk alongside someone important, even if just for a day. You reflect on the tradition of Roman footwear, how different shoes mark social status, occupation, or even political allegiance. Historians still argue whether all Pompeian citizens had equal access to quality shoes, or if disparities were more visible than the city's plastered frescoes reveal. A curious tidbit surfaces in some corners of the empire. Shoes were stamped with secret symbols, a form of early branding, or even subtle identification. You wonder if any of your clients secretly favor such marks. Outside, the aroma of fresh bread and roasting meat mingles, drifting into your workshop and tempting your stomach. You make a mental note to stop by the Thermopolium later, a place where busy folks grab quick meals. Your hands move steadily, each stitch a quiet meditation. You catch yourself smiling at the thought that you might never be famous, but your work will quietly support thousands of journeys, big and small. The midday lull brings a peaceful rhythm, a reminder that even in a bustling city, moments of calm are always within reach. You glance at the window, catching the playful dance of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze, nature's quiet applause for your craft. The city's life swirls around you, a tapestry of stories you're part of in your own subtle way. As afternoon settles, the sun dips lower, casting warm golden light through your workshop's window. The soft glow highlights the fine dust motes floating lazily in the air, a quiet reminder that time is gently slipping by. You stretch your back, feeling the subtle ache that comes from hours bent over your bench. Yet it's a welcome fatigue, the kind earned from honest labor. A few visitors stop by, neighbors, acquaintances, and the occasional curious traveler, each bringing a brief break in your work and a chance for friendly chatter. You exchange news jokes and gossip, all in the same mellow tone that suits Pompeii's relaxed afternoon. The rhythm of your hands is steady as you finish stitching the last strap on a sandal, testing its flexibility and comfort. The feel of supple leather under your fingertips is oddly soothing, a tactile joy that never grows old. Historians still argue whether shoemakers in Pompeii had guild-like organizations or operated more informally, but your experience suggests a little of both, a community tied together by craft and mutual respect. A quirky fact tickles your mind. Some Roman shoes were designed with tiny bells sewn inside to warn of stealthy approach, like an ancient shoe-based security system. You smile, imagining a shoemaker moonlighting as a spy. Outside, the city's pulse slows slightly as merchants begin packing up their stalls and children gather for late afternoon games. You savor the sound of distant laughter, proof that life continues simple and sweet. You glance down at your own worn sandals, grateful for their familiar comfort. Every pair you make carries a part of your day, your skill, and your care stitched into the seams. The sun dips further, and shadows stretch long across the cobblestones, inviting the city to prepare for evening. You take a slow breath, letting the peaceful warmth fill you before turning back to your bench for the last hours of work. The evening air cools gently, slipping through the open door of your workshop like a soft whisper. The shadows lengthen, painting Pompeii's streets in muted grays and blues, the city settling into a quieter rhythm. Your hands move with familiar ease as you finish up the day's work, the final stitches and smoothing of edges, feeling like closing a chapter. Outside, torches begin to flicker to life, their warm glow offering comfort against the encroaching dusk. You can hear the murmur of voices from nearby taverns, the clinking of cups, and the occasional strum of a lyre carried on the breeze. It's a gentle soundtrack to the city's winding down, inviting you to pause and reflect. Historians still argue whether evening gatherings were primarily social or a chance to conduct business discreetly. But from your vantage point, it seems a little of both Pompeii's charm, lying in its mingling of work and leisure. A peculiar tidbit crosses your mind. Some Pompeian footwear featured hidden compartments for small keepsakes, a tiny secret carried on the go. You chuckle softly, wondering if you might try crafting one someday. The smell of cooking fires grows stronger now, promising hearty meals and warm company. You feel a subtle hunger nudging you to wrap up your tools and join the city's evening buzz. You gather your wares, carefully packing the finished shoes and repairs to prepare for the morning's deliveries. The leather's soft scent lingers in the air, a quiet reminder of the day's labor. The sky darkens, revealing a few scattered stars twinkling faintly above. It's a serene moment, a gentle pause before night's full embrace. You step outside briefly, breathing in the cool air, feeling the steady heartbeat of Pompeii all around you, a city alive with stories, footsteps, and dreams. As you close your workshop door, you feel a calm satisfaction, ready to rest and wake to this rhythm again tomorrow. Night deepens, and the city of Pompeii slips into a slower, softer pace. The streets are quieter now, the chatter of the day replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant murmur of a few late-night wanderers. Your workshop, nestled in a cozy corner, is bathed in the dim glow of an oil lamp flickering gently on your bench. You take a moment to clean your tools, the worn knife and all feeling reassuringly familiar in your hands. The ritual of maintenance calms your mind, each careful movement a reminder of the craft's quiet dignity. It's these small acts that keep your work sharp and your spirit steady. Historians still argue whether shoemakers in Pompeii often apprenticed family members or accepted outside trainees. But you recall the eager eyes of your own younger cousin, who watches your hands as if they held magic. A charming fact floats to the surface. Some shoemakers were known to add tiny decorative motifs like a discreet leaf or wave pattern on soles, almost like a personal signature. You think about adding your own mark someday, a subtle stamp to quietly announce your presence with every step. The night air cools further, carrying with it the sense of nearby cooking fires now smoldering down to embers, mixed with faint hints of lavender and wild herbs. You lean back in your chair, savoring the calm before rest. You consider the city's nighttime rhythms, how the moonlight must have filtered through the open windows of nearby homes, casting soft shadows over sleeping families and dreaming merchants. Your thoughts drift to the customers who will return tomorrow. Some familiar faces, others strangers, all bound together by the simple need for sturdy, comfortable footwear. The steady flicker of your lamp casts warm, dancing shadows across the walls, a quiet lullaby for your tired eyes. With a final glance at your neatly arranged tools and freshly finished shoes, you ease yourself into the calm of the night, ready to let sleep carry you gently away. The soft hush of early morning nudges you awake before the city stirs. You sit up slowly, muscles still tender from yesterday's work, and listen to the quiet, a soothing contrast to the day's bustle. The air is cool and faintly fragrant, promising a fresh start as dawn tiptoes over Pompeii's rooftops. You begin your morning routine lighting a small lamp and stretching your hands to loosen the knots left from crafting leather. The familiar motions awaken your body and mind, preparing you to greet the day with steady patience and focus. Historians still argue whether Roman shoemakers typically had a fixed daily schedule or worked in bursts, dictated by demand, but your own rhythm feels anchored by habit, a comforting pattern in an unpredictable world. A curious fact enters your thoughts Some sandals were designed with tiny metal studs on the soles. For grip, a simple innovation that made all the difference on Pompeii's cobblestones. You marvel at how small details can transform a piece of footwear into something truly useful. Outside your workshop, the city gradually comes to life. The first street vendors arrange their goods with quiet care, and the scent of fresh bread begins to waft in from a nearby bakery, mingling with the earthy aroma of leather. You ready your tools and materials, checking each piece carefully before stepping out to collect fresh hides from a local supplier. The exchange is friendly, marked by nods and brief conversation about the weather and the upcoming market day. Returning to your workshop, you feel the satisfaction of being part of Pompeii's intricate web of trades, each of you contributing to the city's vibrant daily dance. You settle in for another day of steady craftsmanship, the sounds and smells of the city, outside a constant reminder of your place within this ancient living community. By mid-morning, the sun has risen higher, casting warm light through the open door of your workshop and illuminating every corner with a golden glow. You find comfort in this gentle brightness. As you prepare leather pieces for the day's projects, the soft smell of tanned hides mixing with the faint sweetness of blooming oleander nearby. The rhythm of your work carries you forward, cutting, stitching, shaping each step familiar and satisfying. You pause occasionally to listen to the city outside, where the hum of conversation and footsteps creates a calming backdrop, a reminder that life continues beyond your small corner. Historians still argue whether Pompeian shoemakers collaborated closely with other artisans like leather workers and tailors, or mostly worked independently. From your perspective, there's a little truth in both. You often trade tips with neighbors, but enjoy the solitary focus of your craft. A quirky thought crosses your mind. Some Roman sandals were cleverly designed with interchangeable straps, making them surprisingly customizable. Early fast fashion, you muse with a smile. Maybe that's an idea worth trying. The midday market buzzes faintly in the distance, merchants calling out their wares, fresh olives, woven fabrics, and bright ceramics. Occasionally, a customer stops by your door, peering in with interest or seeking a quick repair. You take a brief break to sip water from a clay jug, feeling the cool liquid refresh your throat. The heat is rising steadily, a reminder to pace yourself and stay hydrated. Your hands move back to the leather, pulling the soft material taut and securing stitches with careful precision. Every shoe you craft carries a bit of your day, a quiet testament to patience and skill. As the afternoon stretches on, you notice the subtle changes in light and sound, the softer shadows, the slower pace of the city signals that evening is approaching gently. You welcome this natural rhythm, knowing that soon you'll wind down, savoring the quiet moments before nightfall. Evening descends softly over Pompeii, and the city's vibrant colors dim into gentle hues of amber and rose. You sit back for a moment, hands resting on your worn leather apron, and watch as the last light filters through your workshop window, casting long, peaceful shadows on the walls. The day's work is nearly done, and you take a slow breath, savoring the quiet satisfaction of finished shoes, waiting patiently for their owners. Each pair carries the story of your careful hands and thoughtful attention to detail, a humble legacy of comfort for weary feet. Historians still debate whether shoemakers enjoyed any social prestige or were seen as simple laborers, but your thoughts drift to the friends and neighbors who greet you warmly, a small community tied together by shared purpose and daily exchange. A little-known fact surfaces: some Romans believed that shoes carried a bit of the wearer's spirit, and gifting footwear was a way to share good fortune. You smile at the thought and imagine your shoes walking stories into the lives of others. Outside, the city softens into nighttime silence, punctuated only by distant laughter or the occasional call of a night bird. You close your workbench gently and tidy your space, the familiar ritual soothing and grounding. You think about the city's heartbeat slowing as families settle down, lamps flicker low, and the world grows calm beneath the stars. Your thoughts drift to tomorrow, to new pieces to craft, new feet to protect, and the steady rhythm of life that guides you through each day. With a final glance around your workshop, you feel the comforting weight of routine and the quiet pride of a day well spent. Now dim, the lights may be turned on a fan for that soft background hum, and let sleep carry you gently into dreams.